Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. Today is such a beautiful sunny day and the temperatures are a little cooler, so it makes me feel like it is fall even though I know it's not. These cooler temperatures always make me want to spend some time in the kitchen baking and then also doing some crafts, so we're going to be doing some of that in today's video. I'm also going to be throwing some dinner in the crock pot for later this evening, and then of course we have the normal day-to-day things that we need to get to also. Thank you so much for spending another day in the life of a homemaker with me. I always love hanging out with you during these videos. If this is something that you usually like to watch, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, but let's get right into baking. I'm starting off making an Amish milk bread. This makes 2 loaves and it is an incredible bread. It's a little bit more extra than just the normal white sandwich bread, so I like making this every now and then to mix things up. Now, I did speed through this recipe, so if you are wanting to make this yourself, you can find the recipe down below in the description box. I think bread making can sometimes be intimidating for people that have not much experience with it, but I assure you that this recipe is so super easy and there's really not very many ingredients to it. This recipe also comes together fairly quickly, and really the longest you're waiting is during the rises that it has. So I often will mix it together in the morning, and then during its first rise, I'll go ahead and start school with the kids. It's definitely one of those recipes that you can kind of come and go with and you don't have to dedicate too much time to, which I absolutely love, especially during these really busy school days where I'm trying to do a million things at once. To have that back on the back burner is super nice. A lot of the times I see in homeschooling groups how moms are struggling with their kids being able to do spelling, or they're really having like kind of a meltdown with retaining the information. They're not having a good time. And I also know that I have some homeschooling moms on the channel, so I figured I would share. One thing I really love doing with language arts and literature, specifically with my younger 2 boys, my older 2, they were in public school for a while, so I didn't really have the opportunity to do these things with them until they were a little older. But my younger 2 boys, with spelling and with different sight words, I love to do different games. So, and it's always funny because my older 2, they love to jump in. They're very competitive. So one of the things that they're doing is they are actually racing with putting their spelling words in alphabetical order. And at first it was just my son Lincoln, he was doing it, and then my daughter Aubrey, she wanted to jump in too, and they just had so much fun with it. That is something that I love sharing because it seems like so many moms struggle with kind of coming up with different creative ways to get their children to learn, and that is one thing that I really focus on because the more that my kids are having fun with learning, the more that they end up retaining the information. So anyway, I just figured I would share that little tidbit of something that we did that was a little different this morning, and it also made it more fun that while they were playing this game, we were using dry erase markers on the windows and sliding doors. They come off super easy. They don't stay there at all. And it's just something different, something fun for them to do. But anyway, we are now back in the kitchen and the bread has finished its first rise. I don't really have a time limit because it can really differ depending on the temperature of your kitchen. But whenever it is about doubled in size, I'll go ahead and take it out. I'll divide them into 2 loaves, and then I'll roll it into loaves. Now, when you see me pushing down the loaf like that, I am getting the air bubbles out. So it is important because then they'll bake with it and it kind of creates holes and it's not as easy to deal with. So I like getting the air bubbles out, and then I'll form the loaves and I put them in a very greased bread pan along with some pieces of parchment paper because the parchment paper makes it super easy to take out whenever they're done baking. Once I have the loaves all formed and put into the bread pans, I like to cover them and put them in a really warm spot. So if I have the oven preheating, a lot of times I'll cover them with a towel and put them on the oven, and then they rise a lot quicker. So that's what I'm going to do here. I covered them with the towel. I'm going to put them on the oven to do their second rise before I put them in the oven. Now that I have some time while the bread is rising, I am going to start dinner in the crock pot. I am making, it doesn't even really have a name. It's something that I've made for quite a while. We got COVID back in 2021, and I was the sickest of all of us. I had a lot of trouble making meals and even getting out of bed. I remember being very winded just going from my bedroom to the kitchen. So I did not cook for several weeks while I was very, very sick, basically bedridden. For a couple of weeks. And when I was finally starting to feel better, but not enough to like really stand for a long time, this was a meal I ended up coming across, and we've been making it ever since. Now, I'm not going to be sharing the entire recipe with you today for this, but I will be sharing it on Friday. So if you're wanting to see any of this recipe, you will be able to find it in Friday's video when I actually post all of them for the entire week. I specifically chose this recipe this week, one, because it is a crock pot meal, and I know not everybody loves crock pot meals, but I absolutely love them. Something that I can put in the crock pot and then leave and go about my day and come back to a perfectly cooked meal is totally my jam. But another reason I chose this meal was I'm actually doing an extreme grocery challenge this week. I budgeted only $100 for groceries, and if you buy groceries, you know grocery prices are insane right now. So coming up with 5 meals for a family of 6 to have for that week on only $100 is wild to me. However, I have been able to do it, and I'm super excited to share that with you guys. So if you're interested in seeing that, that will be on Friday's video. But this meal is always super cheap to make. It takes very, very little effort. And if you serve it with like a salad, I often will do like some steamed broccoli or some type of vegetable with it. A lot of times you will have some leftover too. Anyways, whenever I make this recipe, I always just call it potatoes and sausage because that's kind of what it is. So in the crock pot, I put in I think I did 3 cans of canned potatoes, and I diced them up because my store did not have any diced potatoes. You can also peel and dice up potatoes if that is what you have on hand or that's what you prefer to do. However, I was just kind of taking the easy way out. It is a little quicker to do the canned ones, and it's a little easier, just kind of saving myself some time. So that is why I chose the canned ones in this recipe. And then you can choose pretty much, I think I did like I don't think it was spicy, but it might have said spicy sausage. I diced that up and put that in. You can choose any, like if you're wanting to do like a kielbasa or a turkey sausage, you could do that too. Really any kind you're wanting, that is perfect. So you'll dice that up, you'll put that in the crock pot with the potatoes. I usually will do 2 cans of the cream of chicken. You can also do cream of mushroom. Again, you can mix that up however you're wanting to do. I'll also usually dice up an onion pretty small and put that in. You could do other vegetables if you're wanting. I'll put a little bit of liquid. I either will use like a chicken broth. Today I just put in half a can of milk, mix that up and put that in, some salt and pepper, and about a cup of cheddar cheese. Give that all a really good mix, and then put the lid on and cook it on low for 6 hours or high for 4 hours, and it makes a really good quick meal. Usually once the younger boys are done with school, I can step away for a little bit and get some of the chores done around the house. So that's what I'm doing here. I am getting to all of the dishes from breakfast and lunch, putting them in the dishwasher before I start dinner. I like doing that where you kind of start with a clean slate before dinner time. Even whenever I have dinner going in the crock pot, this is something I like to do. It really helps in the evening time when it feels really chaotic around dinner time. My husband getting home, us getting to dinner, and then cleaning up, getting ready for the evening, whatever else we have going on. So getting the kitchen back to a clean slate before the dinner rush is something that just makes everything go so much smoother in the evening time. I will often do all of the dishes from throughout the day, and that way once we're done with dinner, everybody can rinse off their stuff and then put it right into the dishwasher. I usually will also wipe down all of the surfaces in the kitchen and take out the garbage, really anything that I have time for in between school and dinner time. I like to do whatever I can in that amount of time. My older two are usually still doing school at this point. I usually will do school with my younger two boys in the morning time, and they wrap up about lunchtime because we start pretty early. And then my older two, they start a little bit later, but also they are doing high school classes, so it is a little bit more in depth and they take a little bit longer to get their schoolwork done. So a lot of times in between chores, I'm going back and forth and helping them, and then also doing the chores or whatever things I have in mind. Today I was doing baking, and also I'll be doing a painting project that I have been wanting to get to for quite a while now. So I know what you're thinking. I just did the loaves of bread. So what is this dough that I am showing you here? The 2 loaves of bread are done rising. I went ahead and I put those in the oven, and those are in the oven right now. However, in that amount of time, I realized, you know what, I really want to try a new recipe, which really is not much different. I wanted to try doing a cinnamon swirl bread. So I did the exact same recipe for the bread, and I just am going to add a little bit of cinnamon and brown sugar inside of it before I roll it. I did not think of that until after I had the bread already put into loaves and put into like the loaf pan. So I figured, you know what? It's okay. We'll go ahead and still make those loaves because I need those throughout the week. But I wanted to try to see if this would work out. So I made another 2 loaves of the bread exactly how I did the previous time. These loaves have already had their first rise, so I went ahead, I cut them in half to create 2 different loaves. I pushed out all the air bubbles, and now I am putting on a layer of cinnamon and brown sugar, and then I'm going to do exactly what I did before, kind of folding them over and rolling the dough to form a loaf. I'll put that into the loaf pans just like I did the other ones with parchment paper, and put them in the oven exactly the same. I often like to serve loaves of bread at the dinner table with butter, jam, whatever we have. And my kids, they really like that. Not all of them will eat it, but it just kind of bulks up dinner, especially when you're doing an extreme meal. That really helps to serve bread. So I like doing that. And I did serve this bread at dinner. It was so good. It was just like the loaves of the cinnamon swirl bread that you buy at the store. Whenever I was a kid, we never ended up buying that. And I wasn't huge with cinnamon as a kid either. I love it now as an adult. But my husband, he always had that bread growing up, and he was like, it tastes exactly the same. So it was super delicious. We ate it warm, fresh out of the oven with a smear of butter on it, and it was really amazing. Here are the cinnamon swirl loaves. They have their second rise, and they are about ready to go into the oven. And as I was putting those into the oven, I was pulling out the milk bread because it was all ready and done. Again, I will put the recipe for these loaves of bread down below in the description box if you're wanting to try making them yourself. I feel like they are pretty much a no-fail loaf. They have very minimal ingredients. They're super easy. And if you're wanting to add the cinnamon and brown sugar, you could do that as well. It turned out amazing. This is one of those loaves that I cut open, and you can see the cinnamon swirls inside. I'm going to start on something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time now. I found this guy hanging at a thrift store for $15. He was on sale. I think it was a couple dollars off, but I just saw him. I absolutely loved him. I have suns and moons and stars and stuff all throughout the house, and I have a lot out back by the pool. And I kind of went back and forth as to if I was going to add him out back by the pool. But after I finished painting him, I ultimately decided that I wanted to put him, for the time being at least, in my room. I thought the colors looked amazing together. The golds and that like deep purple maroon color that is my bedroom. I just thought that they looked incredible together. So that is where he is currently staying. But anyway, it came with this like red and green color, and I just wanted something different. I wanted it to not look so much tie-dye. It also looked really faded. I think probably the previous owners had this outside, so it is really faded. There were no cracks or anything like that, which was really nice, but this is like a heavy, I want to say it's like a ceramic. I think it's ceramic. But so it's pretty heavy, and the little eyebrows that it has up there are actually how you tie it and hold it on like a nail or something. So those I ended up painting. I didn't really want them to stick out, so I painted them also to blend in. Now, if you're curious why I'm painting it all black, my grandparents, they were painters. They painted all kinds of ceramics, and they sold them at all kinds of shows. And one thing that I learned from them is they would always make them look more antique by painting them all entirely black and then going in and kind of lightly brushing them with gold or whatever colors they were using. So I am going to be doing gold, and I wanted that brushed gold antique-ish look. So I went in and I painted the whole thing black first to achieve that. Now, I did pretty heavy black. My grandparents, they used to actually like dip the ceramics in this huge bucket of black paint. I don't have that, obviously, so I'm just painting a thick layer of black on top of it, and then I'm going to let it dry completely before I go in with the gold and lightly brush it on.
Say you need a friend. No matter the distance, I will always be there. No more inhibition. I'll show you again. You've been lost and alone in the city of lights. I know.
Now that the black paint is completely dry, I'm going to go in and paint it gold. I thought initially that I would need to kind of brush it on, but whenever I was doing that, I don't know if it was the brush I was using or what, it was not as heavy as what I was wanting. So I did use a little more gold than I initially thought I would. So I did make it a little heavier and not as much of a brushed effect, but I wanted it to look like it was an antique gold. And I am so excited with how it turned out. If you've been on my channel for a while, you've probably seen my different things that I like doing with thrift store finds. I absolutely love taking thrift store finds and changing them up and making them my own and kind of doing whatever. It's usually like a paint thing is what I do, but I love painting things and making it fit in with like the decor and just really breathing new life into the things that I find at thrift stores. So I was pretty excited to find this piece and be able to do that with it. I used to be a pretty artistic kid. I've been in a bunch of different art shows growing up. I did all kinds of different paintings and drawings and still lifes, all that kind of stuff. And so now that I'm an adult and I don't really do any of that, I like to sometimes get my fill, and this really does that for me.
Getting hot, feeling low, and it's out of your control. You should know that I won't leave you. I'll stay beside you. I'll never let you go. You've been lost and alone in the city lights, I know. But I will guide you home.
I'm finishing painting his little eyebrow tassels, and then I'm going to let it dry for quite a while. I think I actually let it dry for a couple of days. I didn't want to touch it and chip anything off, so I let it completely dry, and this is how it turned out. I plan on adding a couple more things here to this wall to make it more of a collage type of wall, but I absolutely love how it turned out. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.